Let's review our technical basic worksheets. We're going to talk about depth of field and review items 1, 2, and 3. Let's go ahead and start our slide now. Whoops, not quite yet. Technical basics. Depth of field. Depth of field refers to the area in front and behind the subject that appear in focus, while all other areas are out of focus. The three factors that control depth of field is aperture, focal length of the lens, and the distance from the camera to the subject. Here we can see a camera that has an ranges from f2 through 16. The aperture at f2 is open, wide. At 16, it's very little opening of light entering. At 1.4, more light is entering through the camera. At f16, the aperture is quite small and there is less light. Let's compare f8 to f2. There's a smaller opening, there's less light entering, and there's a greater depth of field and a slower corresponding shutter speed. At f2, there's a larger opening, there's more light entering, there's a shallower depth of field, and a faster corresponding shutter speed. If we look at the aperture, at 2.8, we can see the depth of field is quite narrow compared to f22, which is very wide. Let's stack those two slides together. At 1.4, more light, but a shallow depth of field. At f16 or 22, less light entering, a smaller aperture, and deep depth of field. Let's look at this example from f16 to f1.4. At f16, we have deep depth of field where we can clearly read the bottles, the names on the bottles. At 1.4, on the other hand, only the Perrier bottles are in focus. And in the middle, about 5, 6, things are in the middle in focus. So we can start to see the text vodka, but the other text in the middle, in the background, is out of focus. Here we can see at f2.8, the gentleman is in focus. And we can see that these skulls are in focus in the foreground. At 1.4, only the woman on the left is in focus. At 1.4 again, the women in the middle area, the yellow and the blue tops, and a little bit on the far left, the green, is in focus. At 3.5, we can see the gentleman on the left side, the green shirt, is out of focus. The gentleman in the magenta top is in focus. We have deep depth of field at f16. We can see all the animals are in focus, including the tree. But if we look down at the bottom at 1.4, we have shallow depth of field and only the poodle is in focus. Deep depth of field, everyone is in focus. Well, almost everybody. We have shallow depth of field in just that one area that's in focus. Depth of field. So we're going to go back to our worksheet and review. Find or create a scene with a foreground 2 to 3 feet away, a middle ground 5 to 15 feet away, and a background. Keep your focus and composition the same, but change your f-stop. Remember to shoot equivalent exposure. Equivalent exposure means that everything is correctly exposed. So here's the camera. Here's my subject, the first bird on the trash can, a second bird, or excuse me, a duck on the trash can, and third, we have a fence and another duck on the trash can. And as we move forward at F4, only the duck in the middle is in focus. At F8, we start to see the duck in the foreground get into focus. At F16, almost everything is in focus. The duck in the foreground is not clearly in focus, but if we compare to F4 to F16, there is definitely a difference.